पाजो गोबिंद पूल मात जाह मानस जन्म का एही लाह पाजो गोबिंद पूल मात जाह मानस जन्म का एही लाह गुर सेवा ते भगत कमाई तब ये मानस देही पाए इस देही को सिमरै देव सो देही भज हर की सेव सो देही भज हर की सेव भजो गोबिंद पूल मात जाह मानस जन्म का एही लाह.
Welcome to another podcast in the Holy Truth series, given as always in the name of the Supreme Lord, who once again wishes to impart the very highest truth of what many call God, life and creation to the sincere seekers of the world, especially for the modern age. That's further supported by the Holy Masters, perfect saints and noble mystics of Sant today. Now, this high truth of the ages is the noble path of Sant, or path of the true saints, also known as the universal truth, true spirituality or true religion, that is so graciously gifted to seeking humanity by the great holy masters, perfect saints and noble mystics in every age, who are themselves the true representative of the Supreme Lord even today. And although little known among the masses, once encountered, a sincere true seeker can easily recognize that this noble path or true way encompasses all true faiths and beliefs as the noble source of all, details of which can be found in our humble literature, spiritual centers or YouTube channel, as well as in the holy discourses of ISTAuk.com. But before I begin today's session of spiritual questions and answers, I would first like to make a short introduction about who we are and what we represent here today. We are the International Spiritual Truth Association, or ISTA for short. And although now global, we originally set up in 2016 in the UK by request of the Holy Masters of the day, who derived their authority from Great Master Baba Saman Singh Ji of the holy lineage of Sant in India, the Levant and Persia. Now our given mission is simple: to tell the full truth about true spirituality or true religion from the Supreme Lord's point of view, especially for the modern age, while also correcting the confusions of the past and even that of the present about what is the real truth. Yet this high teaching is not new. It is the age-old path of true spirituality, known today as the Holy Truth of Sant, which in fact has been discreetly taught throughout the ages to the most sincere seekers of the time, alongside the more familiar religions or philosophical teachings that we all know of. Indeed, Holy Masters tell us that the simple teachings of mass religions and mass philosophy are only there to elevate the masses to the position of higher truth seeking, so that they can understand and ultimately practice true spirituality or true religion. Therefore, our mission here today is simple: to impart the very highest truth of the Supreme Lord to those who wish to know, with all the love, grace and wonder that such a gift entails. Now for those who do listen and take heed, Holy Masters tell us that they are indeed the most fortunate ones of humanity. As for myself, I am a sincere devotee of the very highest truth of Sant, who has given his life in the service of the true Lord. As such, I do not seek any recognition, praise or reward, as I only act with the authority and by request of the Supreme Lord itself and the Holy Masters of today, to simply tell the full truth of God, life and creation for the modern age. I humbly speak, therefore, as one who has been gifted with true knowledge of that high truth, and as one who lives in the Supreme Lord's will. Thus I offer my humble demonstration and knowledge to all who seek the same. Now, as a friend on this noble path to God realization, I only ask that you put aside my human form, and listen to and take heed of the loving message the Supreme Lord has to offer you via this humble form, who has himself been transformed by the Holy Masters of today. Thus I represent the proof that truly anyone can rise above their given karmic role to become truly noble once again, by the true Lord's grace, if only they earnestly seek it. Therefore, everything I shall share with you today is a gift of wisdom direct from the true Lord itself, for the sincere seekers of high truth. In this way I am a humble servant and a perfect friend, whom the true Lord has gifted with direct knowledge of the holy truth, which I have been asked to share with you. So although I shall speak with the authority of one who has been instructed to do so by the Supreme Lord, please do not attempt to praise or glorify this humble servant in any way, for you too are all divine beings undergoing a human experience in this lifetime, though you may not yet be aware of this. Therefore, what is given to me freely by the highest authority, I give to you the same. In return, I only ask that you open your heart and mind to the holy truth that the Supreme Lord has to offer you. Now, for those who need further assistance, they may privately contact the main speaker directly via email or video by first subscribing to our valuable information service at ISTAuk.com, and then requesting the direct contact details of our main speaker from our administrators. He will endeavour to answer all spiritual queries within 48 hours of receipt, but please be patient if he should take a little longer due to his busy schedule and sheer number of inquiries. Thank you. So let's now begin with the question and answer session from our spiritual truth inquiries as well as the audience today. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, the first set of questions I've got are related to the regions of creation, the basics, etc. First question, which I think might be a bit of a long one, so I might have to time you on this. Okay, what are the regions of creation, their names and a brief description like of each?
Yes, I've been emailed this query many times, and I have promised to give a little more detailed answer today to hopefully answer all those queries about a detail. Before I begin, it must be explained that each region, just like the physical world, is immense and vast and is very complex in its own right, with many parts to it. So I could spend literally all day talking about just one region. So I have to kind of narrow this down. So please forgive me for summarizing the points or being quite brief, because there is so much to go through. Just as if I was trying to explain to an alien what it's like to live on Earth, all the different types of environments and scenery, what activities go on, about health, disease, types of humans, all kinds of things, historic and so on. Imagine how long that would take. The history of the entire world would be a volume of hundreds of thousands of pages. So I will try to, I'll start with the physical reality. Because although we think we know what this physical world is all about, we don't actually. From a spiritual point of view, there are a little different emphasis than from the physical mundane point of view. So I'll just want to expand upon those just a little. So the physical reality is known by the saints as the realm of dramas and unknowingness. So that is its key notable observation, where adventures are traversed in utter ignorance. And that's quite unique, because only in this realm are we ignorant of what is to come, and therefore we live in hope, fear, or anticipation of what is to come. And that gives a unique perspective in creation, because it means that we apparently have something called free will, which we do not ultimately, but we have something called choice, which is mock free will or conditioned free will. Which means because we don't know what is to come, we have to make an educated or emotional guess as what we should do next. And this allows for all kinds of implications. And because this guessing is based upon our sanskars, our mindset or character, there are consequences given according to karmic law to these guesses of what we do next. And we call this karma. So karma operates very fiercely here compared to any other realm, in that it seems very harsh. And it's harsh because we feel we're innocent of our wrongdoings or right doings, and therefore why should karma take such a hold? This will become more apparent later on about why we embarked in such a, you could say, terrible existence from our point of view. Even Guru Nanak said that this is a very cruel play when looking at it from this level, because it doesn't seem fair. But as we progress through regions, we'll understand why our life is given in such a way and how we agree to all this in the first place. So life here is experienced through the physical senses, witnessed by the mind and the soul. So that means that the mind and the soul are mere witnesses that go along with this. But it is the physical senses of lower mind that drag us from one activity to another. They are fed by the latent desires of the mind. So whilst the mind doesn't take an active role here, it does create the necessary foundation of desire and attachment that leads the senses to play with these two factors in such a way that leads to something called karma. It creates karma or pays off karma. So the physical senses rule here, and they are supreme. That's why we have something called sensory pleasures. Everything we do is based upon the five senses, whether it's seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching. All our ideas of, let's say, enjoyment here are based upon the five senses. We don't really use any other faculty. Very rare among us are the philosophers who think, so they are driven by a different type of desire, thinking and understanding. And then yet there are others who are spiritual, who use the soul, awakened soul and higher mind to try and figure the truth about it all. But for most people, they just simply indulge in the senses and bear their consequences. So this physical realm is one of the lowest levels of consciousness that exists in all creation. Although there does exist a level below this, which we are totally unaware of, as they are unaware of us. And this, I'll make a very brief mention of this lower level of existence. This is the lowest level of creation that can possibly exist. And it is almost dormant or unconscious. So that type of existence and the beings, if you can call them that, who reside there are largely unconscious. So they enter into a state of slumber, of going with the flow ultimately, without any possibility of making choices or thinking or doing anything other than just going with the flow, almost like atoms move according to the law of physics. So this state of consciousness that exists below the physical realm, in an almost unconscious state, exist in such a way so they are bearing witness to creation's flow without actually taking any part. Yes.
Has it got a name, that lower?
Most saints do not give it a name, but you could say it's just lower conscious, or you could say it is unconsciousness. Yeah, it's the unconscious realm. And it's not even physical. Physical reality is unique in that it is the only realm of physicality that exists in creation. So you could say this is the middle ground in the current realms, where you can interact with creation in a physical way, in an ignorant way. Because the creations beyond this one, or the realms beyond this one, are spiritual, and they have a different mode of operation. So, because the unconscious realm doesn't have any activity in it, it's largely ignored. And in fact, most souls, the majority of souls, do not go there. Very unique souls descend to that sort of level and want to stay their entire time in this state of ignorance and slumber through the whole of creation, just to see what it's like to be totally unaware of reality, creation, and to exist in that state, just for the sake of it. It's difficult to imagine why you as a human being would want to exist in that state, but when you're at the level of the highest realm, and every possibility is open to you with a way out, then you don't mind exploring anything, even hell. So this region, the lowest realm, will fold eventually in time, and that's when the souls then merge back into, say, the physical realm. But that's a subject for another time. I don't want anybody to dwell upon that, but it is actually below us, and the idea of spirituality is to raise the consciousness beyond us, above us. And that's why the saints largely do not describe this lower state of unconsciousness. So going back to the physical realm, it is indeed the only realm where physical forms exist and physical laws are known by science. So science is the ruling, let's say, philosophy here that underpins the workings of this level. So at this level of consciousness, where we do not seek anything beyond, then scientific laws exist supreme. Life experience here as human beings usually lasts for a maximum of 120 years. So we have a maximum of 120 years of lifespan in this level. And we are here as human beings for a particular purpose. And that purpose is self-realization. Who we really are, what's the truth behind everything, to realize the truth. That'll be a subject for another time. Time here is linear in that it runs only in one direction, relative to the observer. So therefore, what that means is relative to the observer is that universal time as such doesn't exist. There is a concept by science that universal time exists by a clock. So we put a clock in front of us that operates in an unconscious state. So it just ticks forward regardless of what's going on. But for conscious human beings, we perceive time differently. So when we enjoy our time here, it seems to run faster. And when we are not enjoying a moment, it seems to run very slowly. Else, time runs in a mundane normality as steadily as a clock. So this concept of time is relative to the observer. In fact, Einstein also predicted this. So another unique quality is that all realities are attainable from here via the human form. Again, which is a unique feature of this physical realm. So despite all its limitations, only in this form can any being know, learn of, and attain all the other realms of creation. And that is because, according to the law of karma, we have something called choice. And choice based upon ignorance requires faith and trust. And this is a game that's being created in creation as a means for the souls to enter into this ignorant world, yet use this ignorance through faith and trust to overcome their level of ignorance, because they have a feeling within them that arises within them that says that there must be more to all of this, because we are thinking, intelligent beings. And to be created as such, the reason for this thinking and reasoning must be to fathom the creation, which is a logical assumption. So in this state, we are uniquely capable of using this reasoning ability to fathom our way out, with help, of course, which requires the level of a higher evolved being to connect us with it. But nevertheless, if we become a questioner or a seeker at this level, this allows us to meet such an enlightened one and connect us with the higher truth, which means that we can escape this creation. So it's a very special and unique level of creation that many of the others wish to attain, even if they're in a higher state of existence, simply because this is the means to get out. So whilst we might find that this physical realm is full of difficult woe, struggle and suffering, actually that pales into insignificance when it comes to the ability to attain the highest truth of our origin and peace, bliss and love, which none of the other realms can attain. So this is a very important point next time you complain about your lot here. There is a way out, and this way out takes you to the very top. So there are also an infinite number of physical universes within this physical reality that science now calls the multiverse or parallel universes, each with their own physical laws, life forms and dramas. So we're not alone in our existence here. There are many variations on a theme here, of which this is one of them that we are experiencing now. I think that covers everything physical that you may not be aware of. The rest of it you're fully aware of, the day-to-day existence of having to work, eat, have disease, and perform duties and responsibilities here, which are unique to the physical realm. Now, the next realm is known as the astral or sensory realm, or sensory reality. And this is the first level of reality above the physical after crossing the overlap zone. And the overlap zone comprises of a semi-spiritual physical state where disembodied souls, hungry ghosts, and phantom darkness exists. It is a very strange and peculiar world because it is neither one thing nor the other, and therefore, as you can imagine, souls who are relegated there for one reason or another really are lost. So we call this a lost realm. Not a pleasant place. None of the religions even speak well of this place. They talk about the hauntings that come from here, and the disembodied souls and hungry ghosts and almost phantom type beings that inhabit this state of darkness. It is marked by a level of darkness. Once we cross that realm and enter the astral realm, as on our spiritual journey, the astral realm is marked by sensory perceptions. It is the realm of sensory perceptions that do not require a body. So this is unique from the physical form, because in physical the senses are limited through the body. Here the senses are heightened. They are fully capable of reaching their ultimate power. And we witness this for the first time when we cross into the astral realm, that suddenly all our senses are heightened. And that in itself is of great fascination compared to the limitations of the physical. Now, again, the higher mind and the soul stand as witnesses in this realm. They do not take active part. So the lower mind or sensory mind or emotional mind is what rules here. It governs everything that we do in this realm. So we also resemble it at this point, a physical form. So we look like the physical form because in fact the physical form that we inhabit here on earth comes from the astral realm. It is first created there as a spiritual being, and then it is manifested here in the physical. So that's why when we go to the astral realm, we see us looking like ourselves. We recognize ourselves, and when we see the radiant form of the master, we also recognize the master because it looks similar to the physical. So this is an important point that allows human beings to enter the spiritual realm, the first of the spiritual realm, in a state of understanding. Because beyond that, it becomes very difficult to understand if we went straight from the physical to the higher realms. So now, again, because all the physical realm is created from the astral realm, it looks similar. For example, we have a sky, we have land, we have seas, we have space, we have buildings, all the things that you expect to find in the physical realm exist there, except in a different way than we understand here. There's no such thing as, for example, gravity or the idea of up and down, nor is there a fixed form of existence there, in the sense that the land masses or the buildings are permanent. There are many levels there. In fact, there are 180 levels of the astral form. So the astral form itself is such a vast and complex area. It's really difficult for me to cover all the key points, because when you enter that realm, you'll enter it in a particular way. The way you came into the physical is the way you go back. So your particular experience of the astral realm will vary between individuals. Each one will say, oh, I saw this and I saw that, I went here, I went down. He said, well, I didn't do that. I was here and there. I was completely different. And this is the problem with trying to describe the astral realm. So I'm going to try and summarize it in terms of which most people, I would say, would recognize if they went there, because there are certain common themes to the astral realm. So the sky there generally starts as a kind of pastel green shade. So in the lower part of the astral realm, you have a pastel green kind of sky, just like we have a blue sky here. There is a sky there, but it's not very bright. It's subtle. It's much more subtle than it is here. It's not harsh. And the entire level of light there is almost like a twilight zone. It's not fully bright. And the reason for that is because everything emits light there. Everything's made up of radiant light. Therefore, there's no need for an external light to light the way. Also, the vision capability there and the hearing capability is so immense that, remember we said that the senses are heightened. You can see for 1,000,000 miles. You can hear for 1,000,000 miles. Imagine, almost limitless. Your powers are almost limitless. As you progress, the sky changes in its appearance to a slightly purplish color as you near the next realm. Now, the sound of this realm, again, is different. It starts off from a steady hum to a rapturous thunder at its higher stages. And this is the realm of higher experiences where the experiencer and the object of experience is still separated, but the communication between them is more on a telepathic level. So there's no actual talking as such, although you can make a noise that resembles talking to communicate an emotion. Communication there is telepathic. Now, the size of this realm is immense compared to the physical universe. And to compare this, I would say that the entire physical universe that we know, which is massive in its own right, is the equivalent of a speck of dust in the Pacific Ocean in comparison to the size of the astral realm. where countless millions and trillions of physical universes reside. So you can imagine the enormity of the astral realm in comparison to the physical. And every version of physicalness exists within the astral realm. So you can traverse to all the different physical types of universes. Not that you do, but it's possible that you can descend to any one of the physical laws, physical universes that exist here. And from here we cannot. So it's an interesting idea. Now, because the five senses rule in supreme glory, alongside emotions and imaginations, all are heightened without physical concerns for food, shelter, clothing, work. So, unlike here where we have to maintain the physical body, we have to work to earn a living to maintain family, none of that exists there as such. But it does also exist as a pleasure, because since the senses are heightened, for example, although you do not need to eat and there is no disease, you eat just for the enjoyment of it. It's not to sustain you. Similarly, there are works going on, but these works are different. Whilst here we are constructing and building something, there the works are more educational, more learning, more about mastering the senses and mastering control over the mind, similar to some of the things that we have here, but which we consider here philosophy or spiritual. There, it's mundane reality. Everybody does it. So that's an interesting difference there. Also, gender still exists there. So you still have male and female, just as we do here. And you also, because there's no gravity, you're weightless. And you age very slowly, because the lifespan there is around up to 3,000 years for one lifespan. So you age very, very slowly. So when you spend an entire existence here in the physical and you were to go and see yourself in the radiant form, you have aged very little. You look different. Although you're recognizable, you look different. Now the interesting thing is, when you leave the physical and you enter the astral realm, what are you actually doing is you're giving your physical body up. You're literally dying. They call it dying while living. And you're now becoming your higher true self. You're merging with the astral form. So you see your astral form there in its reality. And that is your reality at that time. The physical just seems like a dream. It doesn't seem real at all when you enter the reality, because that's your higher state. That's the state. That's like when you put a coat on here and you say, this is my identity by putting a coat, and you take the coat off and your real self exists, and you say, but this is me, I'm not the coat. So that's the kind of realization that happens when you enter into the astral realm, that you realize that the physical form adorning this body and all the things associated with it were never you. And that's a massive awakening that occurs in the astral realm, which is why people find it so amazing when they meditate a little and they cross into that. They think, I have attained everything. This is a wondrous thing. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. Although that's not the end of the matter, for them it's a massive revelation. And the enormity of this discovery cannot be overstated when you first discover this. Because hearing about it in concept, as a physical being, you can't imagine that you're not the physical, because when you look in the mirror all you see is the physical. But when you enter into that state and you realize that you are actually an astral being inhabiting a physical body that gives it shape, form, function and everything, then you start, oh my goodness, this is me all the time, and that's an immense revelation. Now, you can travel at incredible speed, almost like Superman there. Again, because you're weightless and the physical laws don't apply directly, there are laws there that govern how the astral universe works, which I won't go into. But you can travel at immense speed, like Superman, literally just fly. So there's no cars. Again, people have cars as toys. They play with cars. All the things that you have here physically exist there, but not out of necessity, out of enjoyment. So you can ride a car there if you want to limit yourself. So you go into the vehicle and you have this thing about riding in a machine, but you can fly even faster. So yeah, the tools that we have here exist there, but definitely for fun, not out of necessity. Similarly, as I mentioned before, there are mountains and seas and oceans there, trees, all manner of physicalness, and many things that don't exist here, but they're made of light. For example, the waterfall is a stream of light that plays a melody with it. The other unique thing about the astral realm is everything has a melody. Here, we do not hear the melody, although science says that atoms are vibrating and moving and making a sound. Our perception, we cannot hear anything here. We just think it's all mundane. But actually there, because our senses are so heightened, we can actually hear the melody of the atoms interacting with each other. Our vision is so immense that, for example, let's say a physical table here were to be there, we would even see the molecules that make up the physical table. It's a lattice of network of connections of all the molecules. That is our ability there. And again, this is just a normal ability that everybody has. It's not special to us. So there are a great number of landscapes and so on. And life resembles the physical world in the sense that there are activities for us to do. We have families, friends, adventures, etc., but far more wondrous than here and with a different purpose. There are 180 levels, as I mentioned before, of realities in total, each higher than the previous one, which comprise of the 7 heavens and the 18 hells that the religions speak of. I'm not going to go into detail about these heavens and hells, but they are organized in a way that allows different types of karmas to be paid off. In many religions, they talk about hell, for example, as being a one entity, but it's not. It's divided up into 18 levels. Similarly, heaven is not just one. There are different heavens according to the religions. For example, the Jannah of Islam and the kingdom of heaven of Christianity are different. So there's no need for food or intimacy and work as such. Everything is done for the pleasure of it. Now, interesting about time is that although it's still linear, it runs in one direction. Time is flexible. It can be paused, it can be slowed down, and it can be speeded up. But it can never be stopped. It can never run backwards or be skipped forwards. So whilst time operates slightly differently there are similarities to the physical. Now, at this time, when you enter the astral realm, the physical world, your family and everything, just seem like a dream. Because you have a higher vantage point. And you're not sure whether there's any reality to the physical existence at all. And when you're totally disconnected from the physical, it doesn't even exist. So the experience I'm talking about is experiencing it from a human point of view. So when you traverse to the astral realm from a human perspective, you are still connected to the physical form. You have not completely been cut off. Therefore, there is some awareness of your physical life. However, when you die, actual death, and you disconnect from the physical realm and enter the astral realm, there's no recollection at all of your physical existence. No interest, because unlike the physical, where you can play around with emotions and looking around, in the higher realms you only look forward. That's the interesting point. No one looks back. This idea of introspection or looking back or dwelling upon memories is something unique in the physical. And it affects the way we operate here, because our decisions are based upon what's happened to us in the past. We make assumptions or presumptions, which may be wrong. in the astral realm, because the entire script is laid out before you, there's no possibility of fears, hopes, anticipations, presumptions, because everything is just there. You already know. So unlike this physical realm of unknowing, in the astral realm you know everything that is to come. It doesn't stop you enjoying it or experiencing it. That's like saying, I know what the movie is about, so I won't bother watching it. Yeah? No, you want to still experience the moment by moment of the movie. And that's the best way I can explain what it's like to live in the astral realm. So although the course of events are all laid out for you, you want to enjoy them from the sensory perceptions point of view. You want to experience them. So that's the attraction of the astral realm. And generally, the astral realm life is much better than here. Because we're not in fear, we don't suffer. If you know everything that's to come, the fear is eliminated from you. What is going to happen next? Most of our suffering is thought, is fear, not actual physical suffering. But also there is physical. There's no physical suffering either. Like here we have disease, there's no disease there. So if you eliminate the common causes of suffering, that doesn't exist there. So people say, oh, this is like a heaven, a paradise compared to earth. Only compared to earth, not compared to the higher realms. Because you're still limited. You have to go along your timeline events. You can't steer off and say, oh, I'm going to have a detour. I'm going to go left or right. No, you've got a timeline events. You can only experience that. There is no room for maneuver. So that's the limitation there. Nevertheless, it's a far more splendid existence than here. And none of the astral beings really want to come here. When they learn of physical existence, the fact that we have to eat, we have a body that has to be washed and cleaned and clothed, and that we're limited, they just think, what on earth is disgusting? This is a disgusting state of existence. They cannot imagine it. It's the equivalent for us saying that we'd like to imagine what it's like to be an earthworm. From a human point of view, we'd be disgusted about descending to the level of an earthworm. And that is how the astral beings see the physical. Because everything is just nicely laid out for them. And the trouble is that when everything's laid out for you, there's no room for maneuver. There's no room for investigating the truth. Because you can only go along your timeline of events. So they're trapped. Although they are blissfully, or not blissfully, but they're happily trapped. Because they don't know any different. So again, when you're in the astral realm, they do not know about the causal realm. They do not know about the soul realms. They do not even know about the physical realm. Just like you here in the physical realm are trapped in your mode of reality, the beings there are trapped in their mode of reality. They do not know anything else. So it's all about getting through. Just like we are muddling through life here, they're muddling through their own existence. And there are definitely very many fascinating things that exist there between the buildings. I mean, the buildings alone are floating, so they're not necessarily in any substance. It's really difficult to explain. We have gravity here, so a building has to be on a plane. They're massive buildings made of light, almost like pristine glass crystal. They look crystal, and you reside in those buildings just as you do here. So there are groups there, people get together, all kinds of works go on, but not in creating things as such. It's more about learning and progressing in your role and so on, where your karmic line aligns you to. So having this mode of reality in which everything is determined for you, exactly where you're going to work, what you're going to do, who you're going to marry, all these things are already known to you and they're determined. So it's not a question like here we say, oh, I think I want to change my occupation, I'm going to do a different job. That doesn't exist there. There's no choice. That's the thing. No choice exists there. You just go along with your timeline. So the lifespan there is up to 3,000 Earth years. And you do have a family there. You have relations. You have everything. There's no intimacy. If anybody wants to expand their family, it's done by thought transfer. A hug. And the deed is done. It's not, there's no other level of activities that goes on there. So interestingly, there are a lot of similarities between that level and this level. But overall, I would say that the experience is far, far more enjoyable than anything physically here. So I think, is there any questions about the astral realm? I think I've covered as much. Yes.
A very basic question.
Yeah.
When and how do you get there?
You can get there by two means. The obvious one is death. If you die and you've earned enough merit to go into the astral realm, you'll go into the astral court. I haven't mentioned about the astral court. So the court of judgment that decides our fate is in the lower astral realm. And this court is presided over by a king judge called Dharamrai, or Dharamraj, which literally means king judge, or judge of the king of Dharma. And this is the court which decides the fate upon our death. So now that is a method of getting there, and we'll go through that and we'll become part of the astral realm. We will forget our previous existence after 49 days. So you stay in a holding stage for about 49 days where the memories of the past fade and you become wholly immersed in the new fate that awaits you after 49 days in the astral court. The second way is the way through meditation, through Sant, spiritual practice. So the saints say that when we meditate, we can leave the physical body by withdrawing our consciousness. This is not a question of, whilst we're being aware of the physical body, we can see the astral realm. That's not possible. It can only be done, as Jesus says, by dying while living. And what he meant by that is by withdrawing the consciousness from the physical body in its entirety and becoming fully aware there and unaware here. We cannot be aware of two at the same time. So, in a controlled setting, through meditation, we can experience the astral realm in a way that we can return back here and bring those memories back here. And we can remember, yes, this was there, we had a marvelous time. And it obviously changes our outlook here in the physical, because we know that we have a higher reality. So yes, those are the two methods. Normal death, in which you go to the court, so you don't have an opportunity to explore. And a controlled death, or dying while living, through spiritual practice, where you meditate there by withdrawing the consciousness and go through a certain rules or followings or procedure, let's say, dictated to you by the Lord, by the Master, on your journey home, where you are permitted to see certain things, go here and there, depending on the agreement you have between the Master who initiated you, took you there. Or if you go without a perfect living Master, because you can, like the yogis who meditate, they don't have a Master, so they go up to the point where they came in. So earlier I mentioned that in the astral realm, the route you came through the astral realm to get here is the route you go back for most people, including initiates actually. But with initiates, they have an ability to explore. With yogis, for example, or people who meditate without a perfect master to guide them, they're totally at the mercy of what they find there. So depending upon their karmas, they can have a good or a bad experience. Like angelic type of beings, or they call Ram beings, can meet them and take them to these wondrous places. And we hear of these yogis because they have attained these wondrous states and they had a pleasant experience. What we don't hear about are the ones who witness the demonic stuff, and they go crazy. They literally go crazy. That's why saints always say, be careful of meditating before you get initiation, because you won't have the protection of the 5 holy names given to you in meditation, and you could have a terrible experience. So yes, those are the two means by which you can get to the astral realm. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, go on.
I just wanted to know whether your experience is pleasant.
Yes. Yes, very much so. From the point of view of an initiate, when you're initiated by a perfect living master, your experience will be largely pleasant. Otherwise, you wouldn't be initiated. Because the idea and the goal of being initiated is to take you across those realms without too much difficulty to the next and ultimately home. If you're so disturbed, why would you go back and meditate again? You imagine there you've meditated, you've gone in and you have a horrible experience. Who would go back and sit again? Nobody would go. So masters shield you from the worst of it, but they do show you what it could have been. So the interesting thing is, again, from a satsangi perspective, had you not been initiated, and let's say your karmic line was to continue as normal, without the master shielding you, you will see what could have been. So you will definitely see the two outcomes for you, which means you appreciate the master all the more because he's protected you from that. There's lots and lots I can say about the astral realm from both the satsangi point of view, the initiated point of view, and the non-initiated point of view. The experiences are greatly different. But since this is a spiritual journey we're talking about, I'm going to try and talk about the spiritual point of view better, because that's more appropriate to what we will experience if we're initiated. So from the experience point of view, as an initiate, our experience is generally more wonderful. Eventually we'll be led to the capital there, Sahansdal Kanwal, in which Lord Indra sits atop. And as I've mentioned before, most of the beings who reside in astral realm can never go to this place. It is the forbidden city. Yeah, you cannot go. And it's not in their timeline of destiny. So you, as an individual, are so unique when you're accompanied by a holy master, because you can go to the center or the capital from which that realm was created, and the lower realm, physical realm, comes. It's an amazing place. It's a tower, a light tower upon which Lord Indra sits, which is why Lord Indra was hailed historically in India by the yogis so highly, because of those very rare yogis who through very exceptional karmas were able to see this through their meditation, saw Lord Indra sitting upon his light and saw the immense power that he wields. Now from a satsangi point of view, when you're taken there, the first thing that Lord Indra will do after greeting you is say, "By what authority do you come here?" And when he says, "By what authority," he really does mean that. I'm saying words to you in a language that doesn't convey the implication. When he says, "By what authority," it's a big deal. And you know this. In the astral form, you recognize that this is a big deal. And your only answer is the truth. By the authority of my master. Then the master steps forward. Now the interesting gameplay is the master, to demonstrate who he is in that realm, he plays this game. He sends you first. He said, "There is Lord Indra. Go and ask him for passage through." But when you stand before Lord Indra, this towering immense figure, and you're like a little mouse in comparison, says, "By what authority do you come here?" And really, if you were anybody else who did not have a master, you would be trembling at this point with fear. However, because you have the master, immediately the master sends the conscious awareness to you to present him. So he says, "By this authority." So when the master then stands beside you, Lord Indra bows to you and bids you fair passage. Now again, even this bowing is not just a bow. Lord Indra recognizes that his fate is there for thousands and thousands of years to remain trapped in this role. But here's you, a humble physical being entering the realm, being able to transcend now Lord Indra. Lord Indra recognizes this. So when he bows to you, it is an absolute reverence, and he bids you farewell in a sense that you are so fortunate, and you recognize this bow and this sentiment when you are allowed to enter Sahansdal Kanwal and enter the Bankanal, the next stage, the crooked tunnel that allows you to go to the causal realm. Because Lord Indra, with all his power, with all his ability, cannot until the time is allocated for him. And even then, he has to give up his power and be born here as a mortal. So yeah, that again, these are experiences. When you go into the astral realm and you witness these things, they are so amazingly experienced. There's no words I could use physically here to describe the moment and the sentiment of standing there and witnessing that. And I'm really doing an injustice to all of this by explaining in simple words to you. But I'm doing the best I can to convey the majesty, the enormity of this moment. So that's the difference between an initiated soul with a perfect living master and a non-initiated soul who has no hope in hell of getting anywhere near Lord Indra. You know, they'll just undergo a particular journey that they came in and have to go through all the trials and tribulations of that. Any other questions, or shall we move on to the causal realm? Yeah. Okay, now the next level of existence is known as the causal or mental reality. Now, this is the next level of personal reality above the astral form. That also has an overlap zone, which I just mentioned, called Bankanal, meaning crooked tunnel. Now, you might think, why is this tunnel crooked? It'll become apparent in a moment, because the difference between the causal realm and the astral realm is, again, so vastly different compared to the physical realm and the astral realm. When you enter the causal realm, there is no form at all. You are formless. You are just thought. You are just a connection of your thought. Your mind exists alone as this amorphous smoke-like substance that can assume any form and any shape at will. How do you go from a form which is restrained within a form and a shape to a formless state? That's where the Bankanal comes in. Now, in the Bankanal, it is a crooked tunnel where from the place of Sahansdar Kanwal, you enter the Bankanal, and the first part of it goes up. So it raises upwards, and you can't see the top. You can see the top, but you can't see the other side. So this crookedness is, you could say, is a little bit like an upside down V. Yeah? So you go up to the top, and as you're working towards the top, you're losing connection with form. When you get to the other side of the top, the peak, and then you start going down to the causal realm, you become totally formless. So this is a magical place, the Bankanal, a very interesting place. The other unusual thing is when you sit at the top of the Bankanal, you are neither form nor formless. And you can also see both sides. So you can see the workings of the astral realm, and you can see the workings of the causal realm, and you can see how souls become form and formless. You take a ringside seat in this show. So for a lot of souls who are not initiated, and even some who are initiated by a perfect living master, they like to sit there and watch. A bit like just sitting in your window and watching the world go by, yeah? The comings and goings outside. It's a very interesting place, the Bankanal. In fact, there are many, many souls sitting there for what seems like ages. And they don't want to move. They just enjoy it so much, this coming and going. Perhaps they're busybodies. that they just stay there. But of course, you have a living master. And the master knows what lies ahead, whereas those souls do not. So, when you enter the Sahansdar Kanwal and you go up this tunnel, the master takes you, and again as you're losing form, so is the master losing form. The master always matches you alongside. If you have no master, you just lose form without understanding what is happening, although you are appreciative of the immense unburdening of form. There's an unburdening of form that goes on there. You reach to the top, but you do not know what lies ahead. Not that you're fearful, but you are in a state of unknowingness. But this unknownness doesn't have fear, but it has, let's say, concern or caution. Yeah, and that's the only word I can use in English. There's no word to describe your feeling there. You know, but fear is definitely not there. Not fear, but the caution. So the souls who gradually ascend up to the top are very wary of what is to come next. Because it's all theoretical. Like I'm telling you something that's theoretical to you. When you travel on this journey, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But I'm telling you a theory. So imagine the souls there, although they're at this high state, it's all theoretical what's on the other side. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about it from being accompanied by a master. We'll talk about it from a spiritual point of view. So the master obviously is fully confident. He has traversed this many times. So he confidently takes you up and explains to you that as you descend, you'll lose complete identity with form. Okay? And that's a big thing. That's a big thing that happens to you. So eventually get to the bottom and you enter the causal realm properly. And in the causal realm, the only thing that exists is thought. Okay, so you have no sensory perceptions, you have only thought. And therefore there's no physical form to house the senses, because the senses are divided into the 5 portals for senses to house them. There, because there's no senses, therefore only thought, you don't need any physical form, you don't need any form. Because thought is amorphous. Like you could be thinking 1 minute of your dinner, then you could be thinking about traveling the bus to the center of a city. Yeah, that's how thought is. So imagine, can you confine the thought to any shape? You cannot. So, but the thought has a core, which is you. You are the core of that thought, but yet it's nebulous, it's formless around that core. So it is also creative power, because you realize now that at that stage your thought becomes fact. So for example, if you decide that you wanted to know what it's like to be a chair, you simply think of a chair and you become a chair. And you have all the attributes of a chair. And you can see how it functions from every angle point of view. And that's obviously a very simplistic use of this creative power. As you progress through the causal realm, your powers increase, incredibly so. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So the main theme of the causal realm is that you have an ability to create fantasy and make it real. Every fantasy that you had in your mind since the beginning of time can be fulfilled there. You can simply make it reality and live it for the time span. Now you can imagine, with that ability, who would ever want to leave? Yeah? All your most fantasy ideas, all your most wondrous ideas, you can just create them and fulfill them. This is a great trap because it is limited. It is still limited. It is not your full potential. But from the mind's point of view, the mind thinks, wow, this is a new type of experience, and it really enjoys it. And that's just the beginning of the mind realm. So the lower part of the mind realm is marked by fantasy and fulfilling it. So the only purpose of the mind at that stage is to fulfill fantasy. Nothing else. There's no doings, there's no works, there's no family, there's nothing else, just fulfilling fantasy. Now, as you get higher along, let's say you are doing some spiritual practice because you have some concept of spirituality, and therefore you want to progress to whatever greater powers of the mind. Then you get to the point of learning and educating. So the next level of mind is all about learning the mysteries of existence, the wonder of existence. And this itself is a fascination, because you can imagine, we've just spoken how vast and enormous the previous realms are. When you enter this mind realm, it itself is so vast that the astral realm is just like a speck of dust again in the Pacific Ocean in comparison to the realm of Brahm, to the realm of mind. So vast is it. There are countless infinite numbers of astral realms contained within the mind realm. In fact, there are as many astral realms there as there are minds, because each one creates their own, can create their own. The potential is immense. This boggles the mind here in the physical realm. We cannot even speak of such numbers. It just doesn't register. But it exists there. And so there, at the middle stage, we are engaged in learning and understanding the mysteries, which you can do forever. There's no limit to it. It's so vast that there's no limit to the learning that you can experience there. So that's the middle level of mind. Now, at the upper end of this mind realm, towards the upper, is the Akashic records, in which your entire life story is laid out. So you have an ability to look at the entire story, not only of you, but all the people connected with you. And that's a fascinating thing in itself. Again, it's a part of the learning realm of the mind, but it's something that's very, very fascinating. And those yogis who ever attain this, because believe it or not, you can get there, very rarely so, very rare I have to say, by your own effort, because these yogis are exceptional. these are extraordinary individuals, and they've attained it without a living master. You can attain all the karmic realms without a living master. One of the most exceptional ones was the Buddha, which is a whole chapter for another time, because he witnessed all of this of his own effort as such, but only because he was a very extraordinary individual in the first place. So the meaning there in the learning and the meaning of creation exists there. Then the next stage, or the higher stage, is a place called Trikuti. Now Trikuti is where the three deities that we know as Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh reside. They sit upon these three peaks of light. So when we spoke about Lord Indra's peak of light, we have the three peaks of light where Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh sit upon. And their role is to create the creation below them. So they are engaged in churning the oceans. And they're literally turning the wheel of Dharma. Each one is turning the wheel of Dharma that creates and destroys the creation in time. So this is a very interesting point. Now, because Buddha had reached this point, he incorporated the wheel of Dharma as his symbol, because he was so fascinated by this. The entire act of creation, sustenance and destruction occurs at these Trikuti. And for the soul's point of view, from the mind's point of view, when you reach that point, you are stopped in your tracks. You would never leave that place if it wasn't for the master. Because witnessing the entire creation, illusory creation, coming and going, and the soul's going backwards and forwards, is such an amazing experience that it overtakes the mind. The mind is extremely attracted to this, because this is the source of the mind itself. So the mind's naturally fascinated by it, and it just wants to stay there forever. Now, if the mind had its own way, it would indeed stay there forever. But because we have a master accompanying us, the master says, no, this is not the end. But it takes a lot of convincing from the master to convince the mind to let go. The mind doesn't want to leave that place, doesn't want to go anywhere. The soul does, but the mind doesn't understand the soul. So the master has to use a lot of persuasion, a lot of gentle coaxing and example to tell that you have a core within you called a soul. And that soul is the one that powers this mind. Eventually you get convinced. But the other thing you have to do to cross this level, to leave this realm, is to merge with the master at this point. You have to give up your identity, the ego, the I. The thing that you held so precious all this time suddenly now becomes useless, like you discard an old coat. You have to do that in order to make such great faith. This is a real test of faith and trust in the master. Do you love the master? Do you trust him and faith him with your own life? Like Guru Gobind Singh said, are you prepared to cut off your head and hand it to the Guru's feet? Literally it is that. So let's talk a little bit more about the causal realm, just for those who really wanted to inquire in detail. I'm sorry this is getting a bit long, but this is going to be recorded and it's going to be one-off, and I hopefully never have to repeat all this again. But it is interesting for those people outside who constantly request knowledge of this. Now, because there's no disease, families, friends, works, buildings, fixed sceneries, intimacy at high levels, even gender fades away. So at the level of the mind, gender doesn't exist. Now, the levels of this mind realm are structured into 4 realms. So we spoke about 4 regions. We spoke about the 180 regions of the astral realm. Now we're entering to 4 main key realms of the causal realm. It's divided into 4 parts. The highest part is Trikuti, and the lowest part is just a casual mind, the lower mind, for where the fantasies are fulfilled. One is the creative part of the mind, where all creation and all mental realms are created, and the other is just merely a fantasy realm. But this is all still within the realm of mind. These are different regions within the mind, and they absolutely fascinate the mind. Beyond that is a region called the Sun. So there's a barrier called the Sun, which is of absolute darkness. And in fact, that darkness is the origin of individual minds itself, which we're going to in a bit. Now, the sky in the mind realm is a subtle purple orange. Starts off with the lowest one, a subtle purple orange, and becomes orange red. So as you go higher up, it becomes more orange red, or more, you could say, fiery, because it's dramatic. And the subtle version of the fantasy is this purple, dreamy, purple orangey kind of sky. So that's the level of the sky there. Now, the sound that resides there at the higher end is Om, which is where the yogis got Om from. They didn't invent the term Om. They actually heard the sound. And this sound is the creative power that resides in everything there. Everything is Om. And what does Om mean? It's the beginning of and the end of everything. Because when you start with Om, you open, and it finishes by closing the mouth. So this Om sound encompasses beginning and end of everything. And that's why it resides there. Because it is a reminder that everything begins and ends here. And that constantly resounds there. Now, alongside this, there are other sounds. Like when you get higher up towards the Trikuti, you'll hear the clash of thunder. Boom, the dramatic clashing of thunder and lightning. In a pleasant way, not a fearful way like we have here. It's a creative power. So as the ocean is being churned by the three Devi Devtas, there's a clashing of thunder that occurs with it. The whole thing is a cinematic spectacle that any CGI graphic would be envious of. It really is. So one gets really stunned there by all of this. And sight and hearing are the only senses that are available, but they're not in the form of sight and hearing via the physical senses. They are much heightened and much more expansive and 3D as well. If you can imagine 3D sight and 3D hearing, it exists there. Now, as we progress through the causal realm, our abilities to command the power and energy of creation increase. We ourselves eventually become a god. When we reach the higher state, the level of Trikuti, we are like Brahma himself. We become a creative power. And that's why in certain religions they talk about becoming one with Brahma. Brahman, the oneness, and that's their attainment. What does that mean? It means you become a creator, just like Brahma. So that's the highest state for the mind realm that you can attain. And definitely with all those powers to play with, the mind gets intoxicated, like a drug addict here. Totally intoxicated. There's no question of it leaving that state. Now, time is also created in Trikuti, the highest point. So time begins there. And time is in our control. So in the mind realm, we control time. It can run backwards, it can run forwards. You can interact with it in any particular way. But the only thing is, you cannot stop it or change the course of events or the timeline of events that have been marked for you. So despite all of this, everything that you're able to do is scripted, but you feel that there's no script because you have such a power. But actually, whatever you can think of, whatever you can do is scripted, which becomes apparent only when you cross the realm of mind. So you can travel there instantly in a blink of an eye. If you want to go from one place to another, you just literally blink. Whereas in the astral realm, you had to travel at immense speed, like Superman. There, you don't even have to travel. You just blink an eye and you're there. So travel there is like that. It's absolutely stunning. When we reach the highest point, we see the entire script of our life. And that itself is stunning as well. The majesty of the whole creation, the whole illusion. We understand it's all an illusion when we reach that point. Even the bad times were all scripted, and we do not mind it because we realize, having attained that state now, that it's just a script. Yes, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Obviously, you're talking about the causal realm, and he says within that there's like 4 levels.
Yes.
So the top level is Trikuti.
Yeah.
The bottom is causal mind.
Yes.
Have you mentioned the 2 in the middle yet?
The two are, well, yes, the 2 is learning. The realm of learning is the one below the. So you have the 2 middle ones are divided into 2 parts. The Akashic one, which is about the script of life, the Akashic record, where the meaning of your existence comes about as a mind realm, and then below that is the realm of learning, and then below that is just the realm of fantasy. So you can traverse these four realms. So the whole experience feels far more real in that state than anything else. You cannot even relate to then the physical and the astral realm of experience, because you see the cause of everything. That's why they call it the causal realm. When you're actually at the cause, what does it matter further down the line? Everything is just a myth, a fantasy. And all mainstream religions, books, and spiritual practices end here. I have to say that to you. Beyond this, there is nothing as such. There's a different mode of existence, a different mode of practice. All spiritual practices, including your meditation, your rituals, religions, the books, all writings, everything ends here. Yes?
But it's not what all those religions say, is it?
They don't know that, but they describe it. But they think that's the end for them, yes. If you read the books, there's nothing further. They don't talk about regions beyond. They do not know. Because knowledge ends there. Yeah? The height of knowledge, as Krishna said, is that power, all power. He reached the height of knowledge. He never reached beyond knowledge. So all knowledge, things that could be classed as knowledge, ends there. And knowledge could be written in words and in books. The level beyond that, awareness of consciousness, cannot be written. There's no way you can convey that in writing. So, therefore, any books, any practices, any rituals that involve the physical form end there. Because there's no more a connection with the mind realms. Because remember, these three realms, the physical, the astral, and the causal, are all within the realm of mind. They're karmic. They call them the karmic realms or the lower creation. They are a complete unit in themselves, housed within the spiritual realms. So, when you get to this point, that's it. All the stuff that relates to these three end. Now, moving on to is that everything about the causal realm? Yeah? Okay, I'm probably bored you a little bit, but this is for the benefit of those who want to listen and know everything. So hopefully I will not keep having the myriad number of questions asking, please tell us what it's like here. I think I've covered everything. Now the next level is the individual soul realm, or Parbrahm. Now this is where it gets very interesting, if you thought the others was interesting. Because this is a very unique state of existence, in that there is no time and no space, no place. Now we cannot imagine as a mind that there's an existence where there's no time and space, because everything we do is based on an experience, meaning we have an experiencer and we have an experience, duality. What we're talking about now here is removing the separation between the experiencer and the experience, and therefore there's no such thing as an experience. What is left? If you remove the experiences and you only live the experiencer, there's only one thing left: awareness of the experiencer itself. It becomes self-aware, and we call this self-realization. I'm not going to go into detail about how you get there. I've touched upon it already, that you have to cross this dark void by merging with the master who takes you across. And that's a subject in itself, of a wonder of how you cross into Parbrahm. Let's bypass that bit, because I have spoken about it before. But this is a total giving up of the mind and the ego and the I, and merging with the master. In other words, you become the master, and then you realize the master and you are one all the time. But the master was an alternative version of you, let's say a higher form of you, that enabled you to realize the truth. Yeah? It's as if you divided yourself up into duality, where you have the truth giver and the truth seeker playing this game, and eventually become one. That's why this bond of love exists between master and disciple. It's not based upon, let's say, human understanding of love, of give and take. It's based upon your loving your own self. So when somebody says, why should I love this master? Why should I follow him? He's your own self in a higher form. What's there not to love? Unless you don't love yourself. Then you'll have a trouble loving the master. So when we enter the Parbrahm, the first thing, when you shed off the mind and you become one with mind, you become aware of everything. You become aware of the illusion that you have travelled in, that this was just a dream and have now awakened. Because the soul now is fully awake and it has nothing to control it, nothing to regulate it, nothing to stop it, it becomes all powerful. In fact, its power is so magnificent that various saints have described it the equivalent of 16 earth suns in brightness and brilliance. And this is just a metaphorical description. The reason they use this is to describe the enormity of the state of being in Parbrahm. So this awareness expands infinitely in all directions. You become infinitely aware of yourself, and only self exists at that moment. You become fully aware. And there's no words to describe your state of ecstasy and joy at being fully aware of your own self and not being dampened down by any illusion. So this reality can only be fathomed by the soul, not by the mind. There's no amount of talking I can say to you, or words or description that can convey the full glory of being self-aware and free. They call it also the level of liberation of the soul. That means that it's not attached to anything that can restrict the soul. And remember, the soul is a part and parcel of the Lord. Therefore, it has all the power and glory of the Lord itself. It's like becoming a god in mini form. So that is the enormity of the difference between the mind realm and the soul realm. Now, the mind or character at this point, known as Jeev, in fact, religions identify the two forms of existence as Jeev for the individual mind and Atma for the soul, because they recognize there's a difference between Atma and the mind. So these two terms. So now this character, or the Jeev, or the part you're playing, doesn't exist anymore in this realm. There is no time, no space, no experiences at this point. Only self-realization in all directions exists, and there is only now as a series of moments. Because time doesn't exist, everything is just now. And every now follows on the now. There's no concept of a timeline of events. But it looks like that. From our limited perspective as a human being, we think, oh, one thing happens after another. It's a timeline, but it isn't. It's just being in the now. But that now extends forever. Yeah, or seemingly forever. But it's just now. That's the only best way I can explain it to you. Like at this now moment just continued forever. So time and illusion itself are created there at the lower part of Parbrahm, and you realize this. And they're created by the soul according to Karl's laws. Again, there's so much to be said about the interaction between the soul and Karl at this point in which you enter the karmic realms. Ishwarji playfully put it that he said that there's a library of DVDs and you pick one and then you kind of enter that character. That's a nice way of putting it. And the reason he's saying that is because the mind cannot comprehend the soul, the existence of the soul's ability to create for itself a character and then take part in it. Technically speaking, there is no library of DVDs as such, but there is a potential, a concept of possibilities that exists, in which when you made their agreement from such kind to come down with 1 trillion other souls to enter into the karmic realms, each one already decided upon the character they'll be playing. So when it comes there, what you're picking up is a stain upon that character. You're picking up the stain that allows the mind to attach, according to karmic law, that attaches to that and play out a particular character. So that is how it works in a very simplistic form. Now, there's obviously no gender, no form, no disease, none of the concepts that we understand here. So the soul there is just there to become fully aware of itself in all possibilities and all directions. That's its purpose there, at the lower level. Now, in order to remove this stain that it had acquired to enter into the karmic realms, there's something called a Mansarava lake. Now, this Mansarava lake is a place in which the soul dives in and is purified of any impurities and comes out the other end as a pristine Hansa, swan. So it goes in as a crow and becomes a Hansa, a swan. And that's how the saints variously put it. These are metaphorical examples just to convey the idea, but you get the idea. It's a purifying lake of pure light, purifying light, where all the stains are removed. When you reach the other side, now you're a pristine soul, pure in every way. And your awareness now is even greater in that you become aware of other souls as well who've attained this. And you realize that all these other souls, although you don't yet know, are other forms of you. But you don't yet know that. You see them as sort of separated. But again, because there's no time and space, the word separation is not a real... You cannot use that word there, but nevertheless, they're other than you. Let's just say they're other than you. You're aware of these immense number of souls. Now, because the state of awareness is like a needle going towards a magnet when the weight is pulled off it, the attraction to the higher realms is automatic. It is done through something different called love and devotion for the truth. So now you've merged with the Master. You and the Master are one. Now you communicate with the wisdom of the Master, which pulls you along. You're not pushing, you're being pulled along towards the highest truth, eventually to Satgurus, the fifth realm, Satgurus. So once you've crossed the Mansara lake, the progress is quite rapid. You enjoy this individual awareness for a while, but you have a pull within, a yearning within, that's annoying feeling that you cannot help, that's pulling you forward to something more. You know that there's something more. Now, that's when you cross another state called the Mahasun, the Great Sun. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about how you cross this zone. But again, it's because of the master power being connected with a Satgurus that is invoked. So there, your love and devotion becomes such that despite the absolute darkness of that void, the pull pulls you through the Mahasun. And you cross through to the other side, and you enter the fourth realm. And the fourth realm is the realm of universal soul. So no longer are you an individual now. You've become one with all the other collective of souls. You become one and the many at the same time. You finally realize that all the souls that you witnessed separately from you were actually you in different form. They were no different. So all these interactions you had, where you thought you were interacting with something other than you, was in fact you. And that you manifested yourself into different forms. So that becomes your state of reality there. And again, the sound in that realm reflects this. Soham, I am he. So this is the oneness. Yeah, I am he. Yeah, this resounds continuously there all the time, among other things. And the skies there, I haven't mentioned about the skies in the Parbrahm, is brilliant white. Brilliant white. When it comes to the causal realm, when it comes to the universal mind realm, Parbrahm, it settles down to a more harmonious level, in keeping with that state of peacefulness and bliss. In fact, some saints say that this fourth level is part of Satgurus, because there's a sense of oneness. But you are immersed within that region alone. You do not have awareness of all the other regions. And that's the difference between that realm and the next realm. So there, what you do in the universal mind, in the collective consciousness realm of souls, is you meditate. You sit and meditate on the highest truth. That's the pull there. And nothing much else goes on there other than you expanding your level of awareness through a meditation. But this is not a meditation that we do here. This is a meditation of pulling, letting yourself be pulled by an attraction towards the truth. So you're literally letting go completely of any kind of even seeking awareness. And you are in a meditative state that's been allowed you to be pulled into the higher state. It's really difficult to explain that type of existence. Eventually, you'll cross through a cave. This Bhavan Gufa, they call it a cave. A whirling cave, and this cave spins outwards only. So if you try to cross this cave without sufficient merit, it'll spin you back out. So you can never enter Satgurus through that means. Again, this is where the master comes to play. So although now the master is part of you, that part of you that is the master has a link to Satgurus, it has a power. And he can invoke that power, or you can invoke that power via that power, because it's very difficult to say he and you, but I'm just trying to make it simple to show that there's a power that's associated with you, that you have inherited along the way, that eventually becomes you, that you can call upon to pull you through the cave. So what happens is momentarily the cave spins the other way just for you, and you spin through into Satgurus. And that's how you can escape the Brahman Gufa. Otherwise no soul, and there are countless numbers of souls there, no soul can cross that region without a perfect living master. Absolutely so. Now when you enter into Satgurus, again, there's an immense relief. The immense relief is that you're finally home, which you recognize. And all the other souls are celebrating you, welcoming back. Now this is a state of oneness and the many at the same time. And the way I can explain it is, the state of existence there is like being part of a jigsaw, where you have a picture, which is the collective of all the jigsaw pieces put together, but also there's individual pieces if you look close enough. So the one and the many exist there. But essentially it is one. But this one differs from the collective consciousness of the fourth realm in that this is all-knowing, all-powerful and all-present. In other words, this is the first time you know everything of all the other regions at the same time. You have full awareness. Whereas before you were only aware of the regions that you were in at that time. You were not aware of the other regions. So now in Satgurus you enjoy this bliss. And the unique thing about this is a state of stillness. It's called by some saints the motionless plane. And the reason for this is that it is perfect stillness. There is no comings, no goings, no agitations of any kind. The ultimate bliss is in stillness. Now the mind likes to run around and it thinks enjoyment is running around. But from the soul's point of view, to be perfectly still, at peace and harmony with itself is its ultimate state of existence. And that is what Satgurus represents. And at the core of that stillness is the perfection of stillness, which is Satpurush, in which the souls look devotedly upon. So although there's a oneness state there is a kind of jigsaw piece looking at the picture. So you can imagine the jigsaw piece, each picture of it looking at its own picture of the whole. That's the best way to describe it. And that devotion to Satpurush, the core of that very existence, allows you to move on from there. For those souls who decide that they don't want to go back into creation, they move on and they can then start going to Alak, Lok, and Agam Lok, and then Anami Lok. And Anami Lok, the third and final stage of the higher realms, is where only the Lord exists. You are completely annihilated. No souls exist at that state. So when you enter Anami Lok, there's only the Lord. The only way you can enter that state of existence is to become one in a true sense with the Lord at that point, and that's by annihilating your individuality even as a soul. The love you have is such that you become the beloved. You only see the beloved, you don't see yourself. And when you see that state, you become one with the Nami Purush and you become the Lord itself. Then you realize that everything was you in the first place, and you are the only creator. You created everything and you created all this marvel. You are the ultimate, and more. There's no thought of that process. There's a state of existence that cannot be described. It is the nameless region. It doesn't even have a name. It cannot be named. It cannot be described in any other way. But let's say it is ultimate bliss. It is ultimate joy. And it is the ultimate truth for the soul, because now the soul is merged with the absoluteness of all beginnings. So hopefully that answers the question. Anything after that very long explanation? Again, sorry for the audience having to listen to this, but there's been a lot of requests by email and text to please explain in detail the regions. So we'll now rapidly move on with the rest of the questions.
Okay. The next question is, after obviously explaining about the regions, what are the regions' purpose?
I think I've kind of covered that in the sense that each region on the journey has a particular role to play in you going back to your source. So the physical, it's all about becoming a seeker. So seeking the truth. The journey starts with seeking the truth. Once you become a seeker, that's your job done here. Obviously, the consequence of being a true seeker is you become initiated. When you enter the astral realm, that is purely about sensory enjoyment, enjoying the sensual pleasures, fulfilling all your heart's desires of the senses, and progressing there. From a spiritual point of view, it's about overcoming the senses, giving them up. So abstinence is the rule there, whereas for non-nisha, non-satsang, it's about fulfillment of all their enjoyments. The causal realm, again, is about, from the normal point of view, from the non-initiate point of view, is about becoming the creator of the mind, becoming one with the mind and having all the creative power of mind and thought to explore the potential of thought to fulfill any creative desire that you may have and to make it manifest. So to explore the full power and potential of the mind. From the initiate's point of view, the causal realm is about realizing the truth that everything's been scripted, everything is finite, and even that too will end. That the mind realm only lasts for 3 million years and then that will come to an end. So therefore, there's no reality to any of it. The Parbrahm, the realm of the soul or individual soul, is about becoming aware of who you really are, self-realization as a soul. And that's a big step. Then the next realm, Bhavan Gufa, the fourth realm of universal soul, is to realize that you are part of a collective of souls. That actually all other souls that you thought were separate from you are other ego, other alternative versions of you that you had to separate into to manifest and to take part in the drama of creation. Because unless you divided yourself up into the many, you could not play the parts of creation demanded of you by drama. And when you enter Satgurus, you realize your absolute truth, that your true home, your oneness, and so on. So hopefully that's summarized the question.
I think you've answered this question, but I'll still ask it. What is life like in the different regions, and what are the souls doing in these regions?
I think I've already explained that quite well.
Okay, which region above the physical realm inhabits the most beings?
The most beings would be in Satgurus.
Okay.
The next most would be in the fourth realm. And then the next most will be in the causal realm.
Which region in general takes the longest to access and cross within?
I would say Parbrahm, the universal soul, because the mind realm or the causal realm is the most difficult hurdle to overcome, because you're literally giving up your jiva, your identity, and becoming the soul instead, giving up your entire character, everything that you related to for countless years and lifetimes. Suddenly it's all given up. So souls take the longest time to cross that realm.
Thank you. Which region has the biggest difference in terms of personal transformation of one's attitude and perspective of mind while in the human form?
If we're going to talk about perspective of mind, then we're going to have to limit this to the mind realms, and I'll say the causal. To realize the majesty of the mind, the creative power of the mind, and who you really are as an individual character, your magnificence, your true glory. Yes.
Thank you. You, among others, have previously explained that the whole of existence is actually God itself and of no other. If this is so, is there any relationship or correlation between the physical, non-spiritual universe and the higher spiritual regions?
Yes, in the sense that, as we spoke about earlier, the physical realm is the point at which, through something called ignorance and therefore seeking the truth, you can embark upon this very unique journey in creation of attaining the absolute truth and attaining the highest regions. Only in the physical realm can one use this mode of existence to access all the other regions and even attain them, not just access them, but attain them.
Thank you. I've got a few questions around the mystery of the creation. This one's a bit long and there's a question right at the end. It is often mentioned that the creation is indeed perfect, and when we see it from the top, we would not want to change anything. However, if we think of a scenario where a soul comes into this physical realm to experience any lower forms and then eventually struggles back to their true home after experiencing all the ups and downs of lower forms, do all the souls in creation have to experience the opposite of oneness? And will the number of souls in this duality also remain constant as new souls keep coming down here and the old ones keep going back? Wouldn't this idea of a single lifetime in lower creation, then returning home, be a better system rather than suffering for so many lifetimes in duality with so few chances at escaping?
I agree. However, and it does exist. What the questioner doesn't know is that in Satgurus there are countless versions of existence, of which the one that he has pointed out exists also. So there are every version. We just happen to be inhabiting this version. Therefore, we are having the experience of this version because there are infinite numbers of them. So yes, it does exist. But do you want to limit God to one version of creation only and say that this is the only possibility? When God is infinitely glorious, infinitely powerful, the Lord wants to express itself infinitely in every possible scenario, every possible, even the hell. So therefore, yes, it does exist, but no, it wouldn't be appropriate for a limitless being to limit itself only to one form of expression.
Thank you. What is the biggest misunderstanding about the creation from a scientist point of view, a religious point of view, and from a spiritual point of view? So there's like 3 questions there in a way.
Okay. Well, the scientist only knows about the physical realm. And because they're limited to the physical, they can determine the way matter operates in the physical. So their misunderstanding, you could say, is that they do not consider consciousness exists within. They see consciousness as a product of matter, not that consciousness itself created everything. So that is the biggest misunderstanding in science, that they don't understand the role of consciousness as this entity, this conscious energy that is the driving force behind all the physicalness that they explore with their science.
Thank you.
From the religious point of view, the problem with religion is that it's limited to practices, rituals, and so on. And most religions only talk about attaining the higher state of the mind. They do not understand really the concept of soul. And even when they refer to the soul, they lump it along with the mind. So they say the mind and the soul, and they see it as one. In other words, they see the character of the individual behavior as being their true reality, and that is not their true reality. Their true reality is much far beyond the shenanigans of the mind. So because of that, then religion is very good at judgment. So they say, right, you have done wrong, you must be punished, you have done good, you should be rewarded. That's the role of religion, the punisher, the judge. And that's why the judgment court exists, and they all talk about the day of judgment, and you'll be judged by your karmas and all of this. That's the misconception of religion. Spiritual point of view, I think the most problem with it is its limitation, because people use the word a spiritual path or a spiritual practice to convey something that doesn't follow religion or science. It's almost like it's an alternative, but they don't actually understand what spirituality really means. The realm of the soul, the higher realms, the way it operates, the whole concept of creation. And I think the limitations in spiritual points of view, trying to kind of follow the line of the mind, the thinking of the mind, but give it the name spirituality to separate it, is the biggest problem in spirituality.
Which groups or organizations outside of Sant are aware of the karmic and spiritual regions of creation?
Well, the religions generally are aware of the karmic regions, but if we're looking at the purely spiritual regions, then you have to understand that Sant itself is a collective of ideas. It's not based upon one lineage. For example, you have the Sufi saints from Persia and the Levant. So they were the mystics from the Middle Eastern point of view. Then you have the Indian saints, which are, the saints we understand, what we call Sant mostly, like the Gurus, like Kabir, and so on, Namdev, Bullhe Shah, and so on. So then we have the Chinese saints, like Lao Tzu, and so on, who again came from a different lineage, but they all taught the same basic truth. But yes, you could say there's three versions of Sant, but even then they are subdivided.
Thank you. Right, I've got a few questions regarding the regions and journeying through them. Even after initiation by a perfect living master, very few initiates are able to go within and have all these spiritual experiences of different regions. Why is this so?
You see, there's two answers to that. One is the saints, what they give, and the other is a little bit more elaborate. From that, let's do the saints' point of view. Because you have accumulated so many drosses of weight upon you, of karmas and consequences, retributions, those have to be gradually shed. And if they're shed too severely, it will shock you and it will cause great disturbance. And because the path of attaining the truth is meant to be a reasonably pleasant one, this has to be done gently, gently, gently. Yeah? So you gently, gently go through the various experiences of ever higher awareness until you realize that the whole thing was just a play of the divine. There's no reality to anything at all that was going on here. So this is the point of view of the saints, and this is how the book's presented. Further to this is the fact that the Lord itself, being infinitely powerful, infinitely glorious, wanted to express itself infinitely in all forms, and therefore it wanted to enjoy. The reason for creation is to enjoy. Yeah, you create something to enjoy. The Lord is no different. The Lord created this in creation to enjoy. Now imagine the Lord just like flick his fingers like this, and the creation come and gone. Where's the enjoyment in that? It's like, imagine you're sitting in front of a film, and boom, the film's gone at really supersonic speed, much faster, and in 10 seconds the entire film is played. Where's the enjoyment? So from the Lord's point of view, the discovery of itself, of this individual soul becoming the Lord, is the fascinating part of this journey, and it doesn't want to miss out. So that is why there's a journey involved, you could say, of levels of consciousness, traversing the levels of consciousness, of ever greater awareness being granted in say an elongated time frame, in order for you to really unfold the beauty and wonder of the creation. You see, there's a faculty that only exists in the soul that the mind doesn't understand, called beauty. Now, beauty from the level of the soul is something very unique. The mind has corrupted beauty to mean a certain thing, but beauty is also wonder. From the level of the Lord, beauty means wonder as well. And the wonder of, or the unfolding of this creation, is that you slowly discover that you were just a pauper and now you become the king. And this journey of discovering is a wonder of itself, done gradually. And that's why we like all the movies like this, where somebody's born of the king, then they're outcast. It's a classic Disney thing. Outcast into the peasant's village, but they carry a seal upon them, saying that they are from the court of the king. Then years later, eventually the minister is sent from the king to find the lost son or daughter and bring them back home. But they have to slowly convince them that they are this king. And as they go closer and closer to the palace, more and more is revealed, and they realize, yes, we are the king. It's a much more glorious and wonderful experience of gradually unfolding, like a rose. the rose gradually unfolding is a beautiful experience. Imagine the rose was once a bud and then boom, suddenly it's a flower. It's the unfolding of events that makes it enjoyable. So beauty in the eyes of the Lord, the wonder in the eyes of the Lord, is the unfolding of events. And this unfolding gives things much more wonder, much more joy than simply springing into action immediately. And that is the actual reason why the process of gradually becoming enlightened takes place, because it's a much more enjoyable experience than suddenly happening.
So does that relate to why few initiates get to experience the regions?
What happens is that, yes, in this lifetime, because if you look at it as in one lifetime, it seems like everything should be done in one lifetime. But you have been for 10 million births before you get to human birth. And then you have up to 4 lifetimes to experience the truth. This gradual unfolding on a time event is pulled by the Lord. It's nothing to do with you. The time taken for you to attain that reality has no relationship to you. You're being pulled by the Lord, actually. And when you go to the purely spiritual regions, you can see how, from a satsangi point of view, the Lord is pulling the strings. But the individual thinks, I'm dancing, look at me, I'm good, I'm meditating, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. The Lord gives them the credit because it's supposed to be an enjoyable experience. Let them have fun. When they get to a certain point, they realize they didn't do anything at all. That's why the masters are always humble, and they all say, if the master give me everything, I've got nothing of my own to give you. Whatever I've got has been given. Because they know. The reality is that nothing you can attain by yourself, but the illusion of it, that you're attaining something, you're a good satsangi, you're a good practitioner, that's the enjoyable part from the individual's point of view. So even the mind can enjoy it. Otherwise the mind wouldn't enjoy it. The mind has to have its fun, that it feels like it's getting somewhere. And then the soul as well, as it journeys and becomes more wow, as it becomes more awestruck by what it's experiencing. That is the reason for it being longed out.
Okay, thank you. I think you've answered this. How and why are we protected while transversing within the regions?
Yeah, because there are many entities and difficulties that come your way that could distract you or even harm you. I mean, imagine if you just suddenly, without a guide, you decide, I'm going to traverse the Brazilian jungle.
Yeah,
right? We're taking a local guide. How many pitfalls will you come across?
Yeah.
You might make it through by sheer luck, but it's a very dangerous game. So that's why, masters always help and support the initiate, so they'd be protected from the difficulties and pitfalls of this journey. Otherwise, they'll never make it.
True. Right. The last question regarding journeying through the regions is, how do we stay focused on the path whilst transversing the regions so as not to get distracted?
I think by constantly associating with the truth. The more you associate with the truth, the more it becomes part of you. By association alone, one learns. Whether that's associated with an experience, or whether that's associating with the truth, this is a learning and a conditioning. We are conditioned by our environment. So if somebody is a really sincere practitioner, they need to constantly surround themselves with reminders and moments in which they can constantly remember this truth. Then, when they sit in meditation, the hard work has been done. They are already fully immersed, emotionally and mentally, in the idea of it. Now they're just doing the practice. So for them, the focus comes easily, because they've done all the hard work. It's like everything requires preparation. It's the preparation and the making of everything before you enjoy it. Preparation is the key.
Okay. I've got a question about the heaven region.
Okay.
It is stated that Enoch ascended to the 7th heaven. What are the different levels of heaven, and what is the purpose of the several heavens?
I think I've already explained about the heavens a little bit. There are 7 levels of heaven, that's correct, and the book talks about Enoch ascending to the 7th. He actually didn't, but the portrayers who were supporters of Enoch at the time, and Enoch is a book of Enoch actually was a book that was written that predates the even the Jewish religion, and it was originally included in the Christian Bible, but then it was removed because it was too remarkable and fantastical to be considered to be truthful or even possible. And in the book of Enoch, Enoch was one of the old prophets. He was a prophet of the Bible, and he had many powers. He was very tall and lived a very long time, thousands of years, and so on, all these prophecies. And because he was such a great ruler, a great king, and so on, he must have reached the seventh heaven, because he spoke about his experiences of through his spiritual practice of that day, that he was able to see the heavens, but he didn't actually attain the seventh heaven. Describing the heavens, okay, let's just say that they exist in increasing splendor. So from the lowest heaven, which we call a garden, the paradise of Eden, yeah. So Eden, the garden of paradise that's represented here in the Bible, let's say, where all these fruits and everything's abundant and everything's harmonious, that's the lowest level of heaven. The highest, or the seventh one, is where absolute rapture exists, in the sense that it's called a rapturous heaven, because you're in just constant rapture, meaning wow at everything. It's a state of existence of the mind in which all senses are fulfilled, all sensory pleasures are fulfilled with one stroke. So therefore, in that heaven, you don't have to work so hard to get anything. It's automatically fulfilled. And there are levels in between, and there are levels of heavens in between, and I won't go into all of them.
Okay.
We've already run this quite long.
Right, we're going to talk about hell now.
Okay.
What are the different levels of hell, and what is the purpose of the hells?
Okay, there are 18 levels of hell, starting from the most minor levels of punishment. So hells are all about punishment, and heaven is all about reward. Okay, because this is all within the karmic realms of judgment. So you have your rewards and you have your punishment. So hells are all about levels of punishment. So the lowest level of punishment is being isolated and darkness, being cut off from any kind of source of comfort and sustenance, and where you're literally locked away, like being locked away in a dungeon and just left with the key thrown away. And you do not know when or if you will ever be released. And the highest level is what we'll call the iron hell, ring mount hell. That is unbelievably monstrous. And we call this eternal hell because the beings who go there stay there for the entirety of the karmic realms until it's folded. That's the worst heaven. Only the most heinous crimes, the most horrific lives end up there. And that is all manner of tortures, from being hanged upside down while molten iron is poured over you, burning you, so your body disintegrates, and then you'll be reborn again, because you cannot be killed as a spiritual being, remember, there's no death. And then you're born again, and it's happening again and again. And then there's other things where you're laid in the table, where you're cut into slices again. Now the feeling of pain that you have, because you're in the sensory realm, remember, the senses are heightened, are extraordinary. Whereas in the physical realm, if that was to happen to you, you'd pass out. After immense shock of horror, you pass out. You don't pass out. So you experience it entirely. That's why the hells are so horrific, that level of hell, that nobody wants to talk about it. And anybody who's ever seen it is so horrified at the unbelievableness of suffering there that they cannot stand it, even for a satsangi. So satsangis are always told to avoid visiting the hell region. Because even with the 5 holy names, if they were to go to Iron Ring Hell, they would have a very great difficulty with it. It would even disturb their faith.
Is it the lowest and the worst place that a soul can go after death?
Well, I've just explained the lowest level of hell, which is being isolated in darkness, cut off from everything, total isolation, to this absolute torture chamber of hell. And there are levels in between. I'm not going to go through all the 18 levels. It's not what this is. Spiritual part is about positivity, not dwelling on the negative.
That was the question, that's all.
I know, but I think it's best that we don't go into detail. I don't think anybody in the audience wants to know too much about the different levels of tortures that can be given.
Okay, last question regarding hell. Is it possible for a Nisha of a perfect Sant Satguru ever to go to hell after death?
Generally, no. It has been done very, 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 very rarely. The only way that an initiate would ever go to hell is because they want it, because they express it. What happens when an initiate passes and they greet the master within at the time of death is that they're given options about what to do next. Unlike a normal soul, when they die, they go to Dharamraj, the court, and the court judges sentence upon them of the next form they're going to have, the next life is all scripted out for them. They have no say in the matter whatsoever. An initiate has an actual say in what happens after their death. Various options are given to them so they can make a choice. They don't have a say in that they have free will, but they have a choice. And one of those choices are, well, do you want to spend some time in hell to get rid of this faster? Or do you just want to suffer here in the physical form? Or you've had enough merit, you don't have to come to the physical, you can do this in the astral realm or the causal realm. So choices are given to an initiate at the time of death. So the only time that somebody ever go to hell is because they've actually requested it.
Fair enough. Okay. Let's get out of hell now.
Yes.
We've got some general questions.
Good.
Right. Please explain in detail, well, maybe not detail, but as much as you can, about life after death of an initiated soul and a non-initiated soul.
Okay, we've covered a lot of things generally, but the main difference is that an initiated soul doesn't have to go to the court of justice, the Dharamraj. They don't have to be tried in the court of an absolute eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Because being initiated, there's something called forgiveness. Right? And this forgiveness is unique to masters. It doesn't occur in Kal's realm. There's no such thing as forgiveness. There's no mercy in the court in Dharamraj. It's absolute. Every moment, every second, every intention, every breath has to be accounted for. Without mercy, without mitigation. So that is the key difference. When an initiated soul passes away, the master greets them. Also, let me explain about who collects the soul. When a non-initiated soul dies, two types of beings come to get them, depending on the general manner of their life. Ramduts and Yamduts. Now, the Yamduts are the grotesque, evil-looking, harassing figures that grab souls because overall their sentencing is going to be bad. So they're dragged kicking and screaming to the court and beaten and tortured even on the way. The Ramduts are different. They're like angelic beings. So people who've lived a largely clean and good moral life, but they haven't got a master or so on, they're collected by these angels, these light beings, these Ramduts. And these Ramduts comfort them as they go to the court. They still go to the court, still going to be judged, but they're comforted along the way. So that's the difference as well. Now for an initiated soul, when they greet the master within, the master, because he's already eliminated their sinchit karmas, their previous karmas, the next life or the next series of events are formulated from their life in the physical form, based upon the amount of hours they spent in meditation, which is a spiritual merit, versus the amount of time they spent engrossed in worldly endeavors. And this shapes largely what is to come next for them. And then the options are formulated from them. So they have an option about what to do next. So there's an agreement between master and disciple about how the manner of their next birth and next existence, as opposed to a non-initiate who has no say in it whatsoever. And also, they can be greeted either by the Ramduts or the Yamduts, whereas the initiate, even if they've been a lousy one, will be greeted by the master.
Thank you. How do perfect living masters work in different levels of awareness?
You see, this is about what is a master, and there are different levels of masters. A master is really anyone who has crossed into the Parbrahm region. In other words, anybody who has crossed the realm of mind and Maya. You could class them as a master. A perfect living master is one who comes from Satgurus. So the three types of masters will be the Parbrahm master, the self-realized ones. Then you have the universal soul masters, the ones who recognize that we're all one. And then the ones from Satgurus, who are the entirety of everything, all powerful, all present, and all knowing. And there are three different levels of masters.
Thank you. It is said that Swamiji's soul was stuck in the Mahasun region of karmic creation for a long period. Is this true? If yes, please shed some light on this.
It's not exactly true. There's a misunderstanding there. Generally, what has been explained here is that, by the way, Swamiji Maharaj is a saint from Sant, back in the 18th century, and 19th century. The longest time that it takes for a soul to traverse to the truth is in Vaman Gufa, in the fourth realm, because that is the realm in which the spinning, whirling cave is spinning always outwards, by nature, by default. The only way to cross that region is to give up all sense of self, even as an individual. Totally give up all sense of self, all sense of glory, all sense of power, completely so. Now, for a soul to do that requires a bit of time. Now, he was explaining that compared to crossing Parbrahm, compared to crossing the third region, crossing the fourth region takes longer. And I think that's where this idea came from. It doesn't mean that he was particularly stuck there longer than anybody else or anything. It's just an understanding that it takes longer to cross into Sachkhand than it does to cross from the third realm to the fourth realm.
Thank you. There is a Bani in Guru Granth Sahib which says that the one who gives two Shabad Naam in Parbrahm is known as a perfect saint. Please tell me more about this.
That's not an exact translation of it. What they're saying, what they're talking about in that Bani, is that one who has crossed the realm of mind and Maya, and therefore can give the two Shabads, the two names, holy names, to cross the realms, can be classed as a master, because they've entered into Parbrahm. And like I said, there's 3 levels of master. So the lowest level of master is a Parbrahm master, who has knowledge of Parbrahm, and therefore they can take souls up to that level. And because this is beyond the mind, it is beyond all religions, it is beyond all practices. Therefore, the Bani was trying to explain, Guru Granth Sahib is trying to explain, that one who starts from there onwards, not that that's the only, onwards, is a Satguru. They use the word Satguru. Satguru is not a perfect Satguru, but they're a guru still nevertheless. They're a master. They're given a particular term called Satguru.
Thank you. I think you've answered this, but I'll ask it anyway. Does an initiate of a perfect living master have to cross all levels of consciousness to reach Sachkhand while living in this body, or can we reach there directly after death or slowly after death?
It depends on the individual karmic journey of that individual. No two are alike. The route in which you came in is the way you go back. So that really determines how you go back. That's why it's always not recommended to give your own account or your own experiences to somebody else, because your particular route and your encounters may differ. And the person who's maybe not gained so much ground, they may feel that maybe my experiences are invalid, but your own experiences are valid for you. The only reason why we mention about the journey within a little bit is to give an idea of the type of things that happen within, but no two are alike. Every soul is a unique perspective of the Lord, and therefore they go uniquely back.
Thank you. I have read somewhere in Sant literature that there are 5 other universes like ours with its own negative power, like Kal. Can you please explain how is this possible, and are these universes also under the control of Satpurush or the Supreme Lord?
Everything is under the control of Supreme Lord and Satpurush. But there are more than 5. I don't know where they are picking up the 5. You see, sometimes numbers are used in religion to convey an idea that there's more than one, and they have to pick a number out. It doesn't mean literally, to take it literally, but there are countless numbers of physical universes, each with their own physical laws, each with their own various reasons for existence that exist, not just 5.
Okay, right, I've got one last question now, so if anyone's got any questions you might want to get them ready. Is it true that the highest region of Sachkhand, termed Anami Desh, is subdivided into thousands of stages or planes until one goes into nothingness.
No, I think the reference here is the journeying from identity or separation to true oneness requires a shedding off all concepts and attributes associated with an identity. See, the identity that one has, even in Satgurus, still has attributes associated with it. Satgurus itself was created. It's not the end. Satgurus is the resting point, the middle point, in which souls can reach a point where they can relax. And then they can make a choice of either going back into creation for another run at it, and we call these the Hans souls, or they can move on and merge with absolute oneness by inviting true annihilation of themselves, in other words, becoming the beloved. Now, in this journey to becoming the beloved from the level of Satgurus requires a gradual shedding of shades of identity or individuality, and also of concepts and attributes. And saints have described this is like shedding 1,000 shades of grey, okay, going from black to white. It's just a metaphorical explanation of what happens when somebody becomes nothing, when somebody loses completely their existence, even as a soul, and merges and becomes one. In other words, becomes their true self, whole again. When we become one, it's better to say whole. They become complete. They're not losing anything, they're gaining. For example, when a drop goes into the ocean, it becomes the ocean. It gains, it doesn't lose. It loses its individual drop status and becomes an ocean. Who would not want to become an ocean rather than a drop? So that state of going towards the level of Anami is where one wants to become the ocean itself.
Thank you. That's the final question I've got. Has anyone got any questions?
Anybody? I think they're all tired. It's been such a long session. So, okay, we'll finish for now. And I hope you enjoy your lunch. And we hope to see you again next month.
So dehi paje har ki sev pajo gobind pul mat ja मानस जानम का एही ला